also very clearly noticed that I am an absolute amateur at PowerPoint presentations. If Skoon Pa didn't step in last night, I said to Chris, Nana, I would have been standing with a bunch of fumbled notes. So forgive me, bear with me. Hopefully by PowerPoint presentation number 10, I'll be a little bit more gesout. I've got notes, I've got this, and I've got my phone. And I must admit, in not wanting to put the presentation together and eventually doing it, I was putting my notes together and then the power went out on top of everything else. So if I can't see what I've written and I've got to refer to it, just bear with me. All right, so my title of today's topic is You Are Indeed What You Eat. If I asked you on a scale from 1 to 10, how serious you are about your health, and please don't answer. Some of you might score high, some of you might not score so high. You can answer this for yourself. But where would you score? That's the one thing. The second thing, how disciplined are you with your eating habits? Would you agree that the flesh is weak? Or is it just me? Nobody. No, we all live in perfection, it looks like. So it's only then just me, so I'll be talking just to myself then today. I would say that the flesh is weak. Would you say that you could have victory over flesh? One nod, a second semi-nod. What does Apostle Paul say? He says, that which I want to do, I don't do. And that which I do, I don't, or I shouldn't be doing. So Paul was very clear about the fight against the flesh. If we look at 1 Corinthians 3, verse 17, I'm sure you all know this verse. If anyone defiles and spoils God's home, God will destroy him, for God's home is holy and clean. And you are that home. It's quite strong words, but very clear words. Our bodies are meant to be the temple of God. It's not just about what we eat and what we drink. Obviously, it's about much more than that, what we see, what we spend our time indulging in and so forth. But particularly today, I'm going to be looking at this. Then I want to read you some quotes from Sister White. And of course, we know she is the little light, but I have great consideration for many things that she says. But honestly, also, I know that I've put her books away many times as well because I said, I'm not ready to hear this. Have you felt like that? I don't want to hear it because it forces me at a crossroads to make a decision. One of them is a question of obedience, and she says, the obligations we owe to God in presenting to Him clean, pure, healthy bodies are not comprehended. I don't think any of us can really truly fathom that what we put into our bodies has a very serious effect, not only on the physical body, the spiritual, but also our mental faculties. Then she talks about a failure to care for the living machinery is an insult to the Creator. Ouch, that's quite a harsh word. An insult to the Creator. There are divinely appointed rules which, if observed, will keep human beings from disease and premature death. I'm going to repeat that again. There are divinely appointed rules. God has not sent us out into the world with no guidebook. He's a loving God, and He wants us to thrive, and He wants us to live a life fulfilled. And He wants us to live a good, long, and healthy life, not one filled with disease and disabilities. He says, if we keep these laws, it will keep human beings from disease and premature death. How many people do you know have died prematurely because of health issues? I know of friends sitting here who have lost loved ones because of that. And perhaps had they known more, perhaps had they been helped more, perhaps had they been educated more, they might have still been here to enjoy time. But time was taken from them. Then a third one reason why we do not enjoy more of the blessing of the Lord is that we do not heed the light which He has been pleased to give us in regard to the laws of life and health. Okay, so let's put that aside for a moment. Okay. There we go. New Start principles. Who does not know New Start principles? Dr. Steyn at Heidelberg College was the first to teach me about New Start principles. That acronym, what does the N stand for? Nutrition, exercise is the second one. What is the third one? Fourth one? That's it, sunlight, sunshine. T, temperance. Temperance means moderation in all things. A, air. R, rest. And T is trust in God. Very important principles. They seem very simple, and yet so many of us fail to adhere to them. I'm not going to run through all of them. What I am going to focus on today is nutrition. I have a tremendous love and passion for nutrition. As I said, I am not a doctor. I am not an oncologist. I have studied nutrition, and I want to even say it's a hobby of mine, and I love to help people with information where I can, if they're willing to listen. I want to look a little bit at the gut today, because the gut is the beginning of so many things. Would you say that we are living in a diseased world? Are we physically diseased? Absolutely. Are we mentally diseased? Certainly. Are we spiritually diseased? Through and through, we are diseased in all those aspects. And we are living in a world where children, toddlers, even babies are sitting with illnesses that never plagued people before, or certainly not that age group. We seem to have the opinion that it's only the elderly that struggle with things like dementia and Alzheimer's. We seem to have the opinion, I'll only get cancer when I'm 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. And yet there are children that are sitting with brain tumors, autoimmune diseases. I had a learner 2 years ago in my class. She was 11 years old, and she came the one day, and the mommy came, and she said, please make sure Carla doesn't eat this and this and this, because she's been diagnosed with diabetes 2, and she's 11 years old. Now, for example, diabetes 2 is absolutely lifestyle. It is something that can be prevented, and it is something that can be controlled. So that is the good news. We don't have time this morning to go through a whole lot of statistics, so I'm not going to do that, but I'm sure you'll all agree we are living in a diseased world. Okay, you all know, I'm sure, that most diseases are lifestyle orientated. Or do we still believe my oma het dit gehad, so ek gaan dit outomaties kry? Glo ons dit? People talk like that. Certainly, this is the way that we were taught, but I want to tell you that this is not true, and that's good news. That's very good news, because it means that it is not true that your genes determine your health. Did you know that? And if we look at, although genes, yes, can be partially blamed, if you look at the study of epigenetics, the study of epigenetics teaches us that most diseases can be prevented, that most diseases are lifestyle, and that we have something called epigenetic tags. Now, epigenetic tags simply means whatever you put into your mouth, whatever you eat, whatever you drink, you're either turning on this epigenetic tag or you're switching off the epigenetic tag, meaning you're either opening up a gateway to potential illness or you're shutting down the gateway to potential illness. So everything we eat and drink either switches on or switches off. That's very powerful. Now, how do we improve our epigenetics? Take a guess. New Start. We're looking at nutrition, and very simply fruits and veggies and healthy fats. And it's interesting that science is backing what the Lord told us a long, long time ago. Science is now coming onto the forefront and saying, but fruits and veggies, plant-based diet is the way to go. So that tells me that our Creator knew what He was doing. He knew what He was doing when He specified a diet for us. And Daniel trusted God's health laws. Daniel was obedient to God's health laws. He followed them. And what was the result for Daniel and his friends? Good health, incredible mental faculties. Hippocrates once said, let your food be your medicine and let your medicine be your food. Western diets are mostly acidic. Now, what do I mean when I say acidic? What are acid type foods? Meat, coffee, pastries, yum yum. What else? These are acid type forming foods. What are our alkaline type foods? Broccoli. Yes, I nearly told a joke now about broccoli, but I'll save that for my children. They can tell the joke better than me. But yes, broccoli, fruits and veggies, these are alkaline type foods. And we need to strive to have an alkaline environment. What does that mean? If you're eating, for example, an acid-based diet, you have a lot of meat in your diet, you have a lot of pastries, you have a lot of processed foods, your blood is acidic. By the way, and we're not going to touch on the topic of stress today, there isn't time, but stress causes an acid residue on the blood. So scenario, you live a very stressful lifestyle, you're popping back a couple of coffees before you've hit the office, you grab a pastry on the way, you eat a pizza for lunch, you have a cookie in the car on the way back from home, and so on and so on. What are your acid levels looking like in your body? It's highly acidic. And the sad thing with an acid environment is that disease grows in an acid environment. It thrives in an acid environment. Cancers and diseases cannot grow in an alkaline environment. Did you know that? And hence the reason why fruits and veggies was put in the Garden of Eden right in the beginning. So I want to mention a very world-renowned doctor. His name is Dr. Francisco Contreras. He's a world-renowned oncologist. He has a hospital called the Oasis of Hope Hospital in Mexico. And I actually had clients that went to his hospital a couple of years ago. Now, what is so special about Dr. Francisco Contreras? Well, first of all, he changes the client's diet to an alkaline diet, a 100% alkaline diet. Because if you have diseases, if you have cancer, if you have autoimmune, you cannot be playing with a 50% alkaline diet and 50% acid. You need to go 100% alkaline. That's if you get there. And obviously, we want to try and be preventative. But I'm going worst case scenario. So he changes diets. He obviously encourages exercise. And the other thing that he does is he pays attention to people's spiritual health. Now, it's interesting that people pay a tremendous amount of money to go to Dr. Francisco Contreras. And those three things, obviously he does other things. There's definitely more things that he does and he adds to his program. But don't we have that health message already right here? We don't have to go to Mexico, to the Oasis of Hope Hospital. But what I want to say, a thing that makes him special as well, is that this man has a remission rate with cancer patients of between 60 and 70%. And I want to add that those patients are the rejects. And when I say rejects, it's those that have been through chemo, they've been through radiation, they've been told to go home and get their affairs in order. It's the end of the line for them. And with those patients, he gets a remission rate of between 60 and 70%. Can you guess what South Africa's remission rate is? Chris? Okay, between 2.3 and 3.2 success rate in South Africa. Who are you going to listen to? Which diet are you going to follow? And it's interesting in years before where I was dealing with some clients that had cancer particularly, where I encouraged greens and so forth. They went to their oncologists and their oncologist said to them, don't drink that green stuff. And yet people believed a person over our Creator God. So, yeah, that is just a little about that, and I could go into a lot of detail about that. Obviously, he also cleans the colon, and this is what we are going to touch on in a moment, because the colon is really the crux of everything. I want to just touch on a little bit of the immune system. Do you know that 85% of your immunity lies in your gut? If I asked you who has a strong immune system, or who gets the sniffles quickly, or who gets sick quickly and stays long, or sick long, so that's incredible. So that tells me our gut is something really important. It's an important organ, and we need to pay attention to the gut. In our lifetimes, we consume 50 tons of food and liquid. That's a lot of tons. How many buckies are those? It's a lot. And it takes you about 5 of your years, your living years, to digest that food and that drink. So that's quite incredible. If you have a strong immune system, obviously you can withstand illness and you can recover quickly. I'm not afraid of people sneezing on me or touching me because I know I have a strong immune system. I'm not a cyborg, but if I should get sick, I know my recovery time is far better than someone that has a weak immune system. All right, so how do we boost our immune systems? With fruit and veggies. What is in fruit and veggies? We know we have minerals, we have vitamins, we have phytochemicals, and we've got antioxidants. By the way, when it comes to fruit and veggies, there's this debate about fruit and it has too many sugars. I don't quite understand the science of this. I'm not going to pretend to know it, but I know that with fruit, it is a left spin molecule. With processed sugar, it is a right spin molecule. And so the assimilation in your body is very, very different. Please do not be encouraged by anybody to stop eating fruit. Just a point on sugar. In nutritional circles, we refer to sugar as white death. Strong statement. I think I told you about it, Hesty, the other day we spoke about that. And secondly, it destroys the immune system completely. I don't even want to go into Coke and what Coke does to you and how much sugar is in that. But you have a can of Coke, you shut your immune system down for approximately 6 hours. And then it also shrinks the brain. My son was very small when I started this nutritional walk and I started studying. And I talked to him about sugar, and he stopped sugar because he was petrified that he was going to have a small brain. So, but he's grown up now and he's continuing with his sugar binge. So I hope you're listening to Mama today, Keegan. All right, then I want to just quickly touch on inflammation. Let's go with the slides because I think I may run out of time. Okay, these are some of the medical professionals that if you want to have a look at, we've got such a incredible wealth of information out there. None of us ever have an excuse to say, I didn't know. And I want to encourage you to take your health into your own hands and to do the research. There's amazing things. Dr. Leslie Fasano is a gastroenterologist. Dr. Tom O'Brien, if you like short YouTube videos, you don't like reading a lot, watch a little bit about that, about the gut. Dr. David Paul Morty, he's one of my favorite, world-renowned neurologist. I will talk about him in a bit. He also writes the book Grain Brain. He's got a recipe book, Vivian, as well, that I think you would appreciate. Dr. Stephanie Seneth, By the way, Dr. Stephanie Senath is an expert in her field when it comes to autism, and she has predicted, and it's not only her, but she's predicted by the year 2032 that 1 out of 2 children will be on autistic spectrum. You all know that I work at the Bethlehem Tutor Center and that we have our center there for children on the autistic side. And it's disturbing to see that. And it's hard to see the parents trying to handle that. And for the child to live in a world that I don't completely understand. And so much of that could be prevented with nutrition and can actually be improved with nutrition. Certainly not everything. We don't just deal with nutrition. We've got water, elements, pollution, pesticides, insecticides. But so much can be done about that as well. Okay, so Dr. William Davis, also some things. All right, so we're going to look at the gut. There's your colon and your small intestine. Your colon does the peristaltic movement, and you go to the loo for number 2. And what we're going to do is just very quickly look at the small intestine, and we're going to do a bit of a cross-section of that small intestine. Let me just go back before you get distracted by that. All right, so what happens the moment you put food into your mouth? The moment you put food into your mouth, whether it's avo or toast or a pizza or a piece of cauliflower, your brain tells your pancreas and your liver to make enzymes. Food is on its way. We know we have enzymes in the mouth. We know we have digestive enzymes in the stomach, but the pancreas and the liver also needs to make enzymes. If you look at this, there's the cross-section of, let me see if my little pointer job is going to work. The very fancy, squint-pointed to me. No, doesn't want to do its thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, I don't know, can you see that? It's too small. But you see where it says the villi, and then you see this tube on the right-hand side, and you see these tiny little things that's called the little finger-like hairs. It's your villi or your microvilli. Now, your microvilli has got a very, very specific function because food is broken down, but the microvilli's job is to break food down into smaller particles and then to drop it into the bloodstream. Once it's in the bloodstream, the blood will recognize what needs to go to the brain, what needs to go to the eyes, and so forth. If you see on the left-hand side here, your villi is supposed to stand up strong and tall. That is normal, healthy villi. But if you look on the right-hand side, you've got flattened microvilli. If you're sitting with issues like rheumatoid arthritis, any cancer, any autoimmune conditions, if you're sitting with IBS, chronic fatigue, even depression, and I'll talk about depression in a second, that means your villi looks like the slide on the right. It's been flattened. So that is the function of the villi. I'm going to touch also on a little bit of the gluten. I'll come back to that in a moment. Have you noticed Vivian makes a lot of gluten-free dishes? Thank you very much, Vivian. What's the big deal about gluten and milk particularly? Is it a fad? Is it something that people are just saying? Let's go on, but yeah. Dr. Lessa Pisano, we go back here. He's the gastroenterologist, and he is an expert. And if you want the manuscript or the article by him, I am happy to send it to you. But he talks about the DQ gene people. Sounds very alien-like, but what it is in essence is that the DQ gene people do not produce certain enzymes to break down certain foods. Now, what a shocker it was for me to learn this a couple of years ago. And how does that affect this? Well, the problem is, if you, and by the way, he says from a scientific point of view, they cannot understand why certain people do not break it down. They've got no answer for that. And there is no pill that you can throw back and have your pizza and have your gut still be in a good place. So they don't have scientific evidence for the why, but they know for sure that it does do this. If you look here on the left-hand side, there's your microvilli that's nice up and straight and tall. On the right-hand side, it's been flattened. What happens is over a period of time, if you do not have the enzymes, and this I'll give it to you here quickly, you do not have DPP4, Tanya, at the bottom. You need that to break down the glutenin in the wheat and the gluten. That's the protein. So you need DPP4 to break it down. If you do not have DPP4, it falls directly. It eventually starts pulling those villi apart that are supposed to be tight junctions. It pulls it apart. It hurts it. It flattens it. Jou villi sê, "Eina, ek kan nie hierdie goed prosesseer nie, ek kan dit nie afbreek nie," and it falls directly into the bloodstream. And what happens then? What happens is that your white blood cells see that as a foreign object. It sees it as an enemy. It attaches to that protein molecule and it makes IgG antibodies. So what's the big deal about IgG antibodies? The big deal is that IgG antibodies leads to inflammation. Inflammation, what is RA? Rheumatoid arthritis. It's inflammation. What's diabetes? It's inflammation. What is it when you have problems with your heart? You have inflammation in the heart, and the list goes on and on and on. What we can't, or what they cannot determine, is where the inflammation will go and how it will manifest, but it certainly will manifest in your body. Going back to milk, you've heard about milk. I drink almond milk and cashew milk and all of these things because I am a celiac gluten intolerant person. That is an autoimmune condition. So my body cannot tolerate these things at all. It makes me sick. It does all kinds of things to me. You need renin to break down that protein molecule. So it's very interesting. And there are other protein molecules. Corn has zion. Some people can't tolerate corn. People test differently. There's the wheat. By the way, we know wheat is genetically modified because many people go, so what's the big deal with wheat? It's not the wheat of the Bible times. It's not the milk of the Bible times. And Dr. Paul Morter says that even if you have the enzymes to break down the gluten in the milk, or any of these others, you've got other main allergens, he says you still only partially break it down. So where does the rest go? So as I said, each person tests differently. I'm going to have to move on a little bit faster. Okay, so I want to touch on Dr. David Paul Morter quickly. I said he was one of the doctors, he's one of the top neurologists. What's interesting is if anybody comes to him with any neurological issue, that could be ADD, ADHD, autism, Parkinson's, depression, not a depression, I'm having a blue Monday, the kind of depression that hovers, not the depression, I lost my job, it's a hovering depression. Anything, dementia, he tests for gluten and milk. He's struggling with brain fog. And if you look at x-rays of the brain, you see the white substances. And he immediately takes that out of people's diet. And there is an improvement. Just moving past him, we have something called the vagus nerve. I'm just going to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be reading that. Oh, that cookie. I just lost that. All right. We've got something called the vagus nerve. It runs on either side of the body, and it is connected to the stomach. Your stomach is your second brain. First brain, second brain. And the first brain and second brain talk to each other constantly. Every 9 seconds, messages are sent between the first brain and the second brain. So that is phenomenal. They are constantly talking to each other. Let me see if I can get back in here, and then we're going to finish up soon. Calvin, how do I get to the main where it makes it nice and big for me again? That one. Okay, thank you so much. All right, we're almost done. You've heard of IBS. Anyone struggle with IBS? About 40% of visits to the gastroenterologist is due to IBS. IBS is also inflammation. I want to just bring up for you, Mana especially, you drive a vehicle. And when there's a problem with your vehicle, there are little warning signs that go on. They go up, right? If you get those red flashy signs, do you leave it or do you do something about it? Most men I know will immediately do something about it. Now, your body is like a car. It sends warning signals. It tells you something is not right. Something is not right. And God has created us like that. He sends warning signals. And yet, we pay attention to a vehicle, but we don't pay attention to our own bodies. Now, I've said to you, I'm a celiac gluten intolerant person. It sounds like such a horrid thing. And I just want to very quickly mention that I have this gluten and dairy sensitivity. I also have soya and nuts and eggs and the whole toot. So it's really, really, really tough. So for most of my life, I've neglected my health. As a child, I lived on my mom's macaroni and cheese. By the way, she makes the best macaroni and cheese. And more cheese and more bread and I think chicken Viennas and some potatoes and meat. And that's how I lived. Then I went to Helderberg High School, 9 and matric, couldn't stand the hostel food, and I lived on bread and peanut butter. Then I went to Helderberg College, and what did I live on? Bread and peanut butter. That was my staple diet. In fact, I remember sitting with matric exams with my bread and peanut butter samis next to me, scratching my head open because I couldn't concentrate. That was the brain fog, the ADD. And why was that there? Because gluten eats away at the myelin sheath in the brain. Do you know that they find gluten protein chunks on the brains of people with dementia and Alzheimer? How's that possible? Because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. But that's a talk for another time. Then I went to South Korea for 4 years, and I lived on KFC, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Burger King, and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. And what was the result? Yeah, I mentioned the ADD, hormone issues, chronic fatigue, eye problems. I have a severe eye disease, and I found out later that is very much part of, if you have gluten intolerance, it comes out possibly in the eyes as well. Weight issues, depression, gut issues. So my list was quite long. And now I'm super conscious of everything I put into my mouth, food and drink. And sometimes I slip up. Sometimes I relax. It was my husband's birthday last weekend, and I celebrated like everyone else. And sometimes I just plain rebel because I don't want to follow fruit and nuts and veggies all the time. But then I ask God to renew me and to help me with my discipline and help me that will make choices that will honor Him. I want to leave you with this Bible verse. We are more than conquerors through Him that loved us. And this is in Romans 8, verse 37. How do we fix our guts, find a better place in our health? We replace it with healing foods. We follow God's diet. We follow God's plan. And my wish for me and for you is may we strive to overcome and conquer self, knowing that our strength doesn't lie in our own efforts. May we submit our will to God and ask Him for help. May we honor the vehicle that God has given us. And remember that we cannot serve a holy God with an unholy diet. Can we just close our eyes for prayer, please? Father God, there is so much information out there, and this is a topic that can actually be exhausted. Will you forgive us where we falter and we fail and we dishonor you, not only with thoughts and deeds, but with our actions towards our bodies. May you strengthen us and uplift us, and may we as Seventh-day Adventists take the reins and go forward and proclaim the health message, a health message that is so important not only for our bodies, for our minds, that in the end times that we can stand the true test of our faith. Amen.